Hello everyone, we will start the webinar in a few seconds. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the End-to-End Supplier Management webinar. I am Emeline Bilongo, the Event and Community Lead at Tungsten. And if you are here today, it's because you want to learn how the world-class vendor management enhances e-invoicing programs. I'm pleased to introduce our experts, starting with Steve Emecz, the VP of Partnership at Tungsten. Steve brings a decade in e-commerce, payment, and digitization in various leadership roles. I'm also delighted to present Danny Thompson, the VP of Product and Strategy at apexanalytix. Daniel has 24 years of experience automating global source to pay processes. He currently leads the market and product strategy for apexanalytix, and Apex is specializing in global supplier management software and services. So during this session, all microphones will be muted, and if you have any question, please add them into the chat, and our expert will answer them at the end of the session. Additionally, you will receive a copy of the slide post the webinar. And yes, for now, I will pass on it to Steve and Daniel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the End-to-End Supplier Management webinar with apexanalytix. My name is Steve Emecz, and I'm the VP of Partnerships here at Tungsten. We're very proud to have a number of technology partners that work with us as the world's largest e-invoicing network. And I'm particularly interested to have Danny come and talk to you guys today. A few weeks ago, I was in Lisbon for the Shared Services Week, and I was very pleased to be asked to chair a couple of roundtables. We had Amazon, one of our other technology partners, with us. And as part of these roundtables, we were asking the heads of shared services and the GPOs that were there what their major problems and what their biggest challenges were for 2022. And in both of the roundtables, in the top three biggest challenges people were flagging in 2022 was vendor management. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce Danny today from Apex, and he will walk you through what world-class end-to-end supplier management looks like. So over to you, Danny.
Thanks a lot, Steve and Emeline. We really appreciate and love this partnership with the Tungsten Network. You guys bring so much to invoice automation, and we see a really great nexus between what you're doing and what your clients are doing with your solution and the supplier management process, and we'll get into that as we go along. Some of the key benefits are everywhere from improving the information that you have, but also improving your fraud position, fraud prevention position with your suppliers. Just a quick word on Apex. We're a global company, been around for 33 years, headquartered in Greensboro, North Carolina in the US, but we also have locations in other parts of the world, including just outside London in Milton Keynes. We have about 250 Fortune 500 Global 2000 clients in really every vertical. These are the largest companies in the world. All told, they're protecting about $8 trillion in spend using apexanalytix solutions, and about 55 million suppliers in our Smart VM database, golden records for suppliers, and about 8 million suppliers on the Apex portal. We'll learn more about that as we move along. We're talking about supplier master data today because it really provides the foundation for everything else that you do in automation around the source to pay process, from who you do business with, when you'll pay your suppliers, and how you'll pay them. But why are we talking about this right now? And the reason that there's been a huge increase in the focus of supplier data are some major things going on in the market right now. First of all, there's been an unprecedented workforce disruption that has not only disrupted the shared services environment around accounts payable and processing, but it's displaced the key supplier contacts that companies rely on for managing their supplier information. So there's these manual interactions have been disrupted. Second, of course, everyone's aware of massive global increase in supply chain risk because of the disruption in manufacturing and freight, as well as the financial crisis. And then lastly, there has been a huge increase in P2P fraud over the last couple of years as the fraudsters out there have gotten more sophisticated in their attacks of large corporates to manage to intercept payments primarily through business email compromise and other social engineering sorts of activities. So that really speaks to the way we're controlling supplier data and needs for better controls around that. Aside from those major disruptions, as you're trying to deploy an automation solution like e-invoicing or other things that you might be doing to improve your relationships with your suppliers, it's really important to engage suppliers in a productive way. And apexanalytix has been analyzing the kinds of contact data and kinds of communications that engage suppliers in a productive way. And what we found is suppliers have a 15% response rate to snail mail sent to their business address. They are about 4 times more likely to respond to a phone call and about 5 times more likely to respond to an email as people have made this move to email communications. But if you look at the vendor master or supplier master data of most large companies, their data is structured in exactly the other opposite proportions. They have addresses for 98%, but phone numbers for only about 1/3 and email addresses for less than 5%. Now, this is data that's in the vendor master or in the supplier master that could be used for automated communications or around a strategic program. Without the right contact data, it's very difficult to be successful in these change management programs. So what we've learned speaking with practitioners in the market is that the supplier master problems start on day one with inefficient supplier onboarding processes. So what we've seen over the last few years is more and more companies are looking to and implementing automated supplier onboarding processes. You can see a series of surveys that we did in the marketplace with Shared Services Link and ourselves. In 2015, you can see about 37% of companies had no upfront process. They would wait until an invoice would come in before creating a supplier master record. Then about 51% were using either a paper process or a PDF process or an internal portal where the requester, the person who had the relationship with the supplier, would capture information from the supplier offline and then create a request for a new vendor online. So essentially the data is being exchanged offline and through a manual process. And at that time, about 12% of companies were using a supplier-facing portal to capture data from the supplier themselves and be as accurate as possible. Over the years since 2015, you can see there's been a move toward more supplier-facing portals, but still about 60% of companies have supplier onboarding processes that are really highly prone to error and lack the necessary data protection controls. So we've been working with our clients for many years to create a solution to improve their supplier data, and together with them, we've created a 3-step framework to fast-track trusted supplier data. It starts out with a master data cleanse and enrichment process. Then we guard their front door with a touchless supplier onboarding process that is fully automated online, and also not only captures data, but validates it. And then an ongoing continuous monitoring capability, because as you all know, when you capture a piece of data, it starts to age and has a potential of becoming inaccurate over time. Working with them, we discovered that so much of the data that is being captured needed to be validated and could be more accurately validated in an automated sense than if it were being validated manually. So we built a real-time integration with 850 global government, regulatory, and authoritative third-party data sources to automatically validate and enrich supplier master data. And so this can be applied to existing supplier masters or can be applied in real time as suppliers are onboarding and then used in a continuous monitoring process after the fact. And this solution not only taps external data sources like country address books and politically exposed persons lists, but also tax authorities, the banking system, D&B data sources, and others, as well as our own database, Apex's own database of vendors who are suppliers who are doing business with the Fortune 500 and Global 2000. We not only created this cleansing and enrichment tool, but working with our clients created a touchless supplier onboarding process. And what's critical with this solution is customers want to capture a lot of information about their suppliers in order to have a healthy relationship. It's not only identity information and firmographics, but risk scores, contacts for key roles, the addresses or headquarters, order from and remit to addresses, and tax documents, certificates of insurance, etc. As well as they want to enroll these suppliers in their strategic programs, their e-invoicing initiatives, their payment terms initiatives, their electronic payments initiatives. So what the solution does is fully automates that process. The supplier follows a link, and then the portal walks them through the capture and validation of everything that is important. And then at the end, routes intelligently the profile to the appropriate approvers for approval, and upon approval creates the fully formed master record inside the client's ERP systems. So it ends up being a touchless process, protecting all of the data, but also making sure all the data is being captured along the way. A really important part of the solution and what everybody needs to be thinking about, whether you're using an Apex solution or not, is you need multiple layers of protection around bank account changes in particular. You need to limit the channels through which bank account changes can be submitted. You need some sort of monitoring to make sure you're aware if a fraudster is trying to probe your controls and figure out how to get around them. You need to contact the bank to confirm the bank account ownership. Part of this may also be challenging the requester to provide you with the current bank account information before it can be changed. And then what we found is, in the case of Apex, we've added a layer onto this, not only integration to banks to confirm the legal owner of a bank account, but we also, in cases where we're not able to integrate with the bank in question, we have a community database of which bank account suppliers are using with all of our clients. And if a supplier is trying to change a bank account for you, that is then we can bounce that supplier and bank account combination against our global database to see if any other companies are using that combination of a bank account and supplier to pay the supplier. And if not, additional due diligence may be in order. There are also some continuous monitoring components that you need to be aware of. One example is what's happened with Russia and Ukraine, where there are global sanctions lists that are being updated continuously. And so our clients need a solution that is hitting the global sanctions list every day to see if any of their existing suppliers or suppliers they're considering doing business with are on the sanctions list. And with a solution like the Apex portal, this happens automatically in real time. And then there are new regulations that are coming into effect that we all need to be aware of. One of them, for example, is the German Supply Chain Act, where you need to be monitoring the greenhouse gas emissions and other sustainability sorts of concerns associated with your suppliers. And the Apex portal takes care of that as well. It's got a very comprehensive ongoing continuous risk management monitoring solution that monitors for many different sorts of risks, from financial risks and sustainability to ethics and identity, operational risk, reputational risk, et cetera. The inputs to this are everything from third-party scores, global news monitoring, questionnaires, detailed analysis of the supplier's attributes and their transaction attributes. And they are all brought together in some highly configurable scorecards that provide all of the detail necessary to understand a risk, but also because there are way more data points to be monitored than a human can monitor on a daily basis. It also has built-in thresholds that are configurable that can raise alerts to you when a supplier is got data that suggests there's a risk that's emerging related to that supplier. Those are all high-level insights into what our clients have asked us to do with the solution and that we've worked together with them to build. Spend Matters publishes an analysis of solutions in this space, and you can see where you want to be in that chart based on customer scores being the x-axis and analyst scores being the y-axis. They talk about the solution being excellent if you're interested in controlling your data and monitoring your risk based on the differentiators that are here at the top. So that's essentially the highlight of the solution, and I think now we want to go to Q&A. Yes, Steve?
That's perfect, Danny. Thank you so much. As you could see from the lead in there from Danny, why this is such a critical area to be taking a look at. And at Tungsten, with us onboarding suppliers to electronic invoicing, we find that those that have a world-class vendor management platform at their hands, the performance that we can achieve on electronic invoicing is significantly enhanced. Emmeline, you're in the background monitoring the questions. I think if we can have questions in the Q&A and in the chat window, feel free also to let us know which city and which country you're dialing in from, because that's always very useful for us to understand on the webinars what countries are represented. We obviously tried to have both a European and US focus on this one, with putting the call in at in the afternoon UK time. So have we got any questions that have come in?
Yes, correct, Steve. So first of all, thank you both of you, Steve and Daniel, for this session. So we hope that everyone found, great value. I do have a couple of questions here for you. So the first one is, which countries do you support? It is multilingual, currencies.
Sure. Yeah, the solution is global because our clients are global and their suppliers are all around the world. So every country in the world is supported. Some functions and controls apply to specific countries because they're only relevant to specific countries. But for example, we have address validations and auto correction for every country in the world. We have the same for politically exposed parties. We have the banking rules for every country in the world, which currencies are allowed and what are the appropriate banking systems in those countries. Some of the things like, say, bank account ownership integration are for specific countries, and we're working to expand those. The system is multilingual. It supports about 30 languages today, and it goes beyond being multilingual. It also allows localization because different words, even in the same language, are used differently in different countries, as well as sometimes our clients have their own jargon or terms for things. A classic example is vendors versus suppliers. And all of that is configurable for the client to meet their own unique business rules.
Great, thank you very much. And that's a good answer. I do have another question. So we have SAP in the US, Oracle in Europe, and PeopleSoft in Japan. Does this mean suppliers would need to log into 3 different portals?
The short answer is no. It's a single, a client gets their own white labeled portal. So if you're from Disney, then it says that the logo on the portal is Disney. But if you have multiple ERP instances, the supplier gets a single user experience and a single record to configure that supports all of the back-end ERP systems. We just, with our technology, take care of understanding what are the unique requirements of those multiple ERP systems and which suppliers need to be loaded into which. And so all of that is taken care of automatically. And that also makes it really easy if you're in the middle of an ERP migration process. The suppliers don't have to go back in and re-register, or they don't have to migrate to a new system with you. You can migrate them without them even being aware of
it. Great. And then actually, let me see, I have another question. Okay, how long does it take to deploy the solution?
Yeah, great question. There are really 2 different ways to deploy the solution. One is a highly configured, highly integrated solution that has all of your own complex business rules configured into it. And that takes about 6 months to deploy. And because we pay a lot of attention to how clients may be using data inside their own systems and take care of all the mapping and business rules associated with that. But there's also a quick to deploy solution, and even our clients who are doing the deeper solution use this in the interim, and we call it registration essentials. And it can be up in about 3 weeks. And it has all of the universal validations and data requirements and enrichments, along with a workflow approval process that any company can use. So it might not be as highly tailored to a client's own environment, but it has all of the best practices built in to validate addresses and tax IDs and bank accounts, et cetera. And it's not integrated to the client's ERP when you're using Registration Essentials. So that makes it very quick to deploy into one's existing environment and close any control gaps that might be existing.
Great. Thank you for that answer. I do have one last question for you. Can we include suppliers' specific questions, for example, IT vendors?
Yeah, the system creates a unique user journey for every supplier based on supplier type, what region of the world they're in, and what business groups that they're doing business with. And so IT suppliers get questions that are appropriate for them, including, you can include things like data security protection agreements. And we have one client who is in a healthcare business, and so they have some of their suppliers coming on site, and so they may be exposed to personal health information. And so the suppliers that are doing that, they get flagged during the supplier invitation to register process, and they have specific questionnaires and agreements that they have to complete before they can come on site. So all of that is highly configurable and can vary from supplier to supplier based on your own unique business rules.
Great. Thank you very much for the answer. Well, I don't have any more, but thank you very much, Daniel and Steve. This is a great session. As I mentioned before, everyone that attended this webinar will receive a copy of this slide. And if you have any question, please reach out to Tungsten Network. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.